Evening folks, it's a sunny Friday here at Merc Towers. So tonight we've got a little tutorial on how to get a pretty cool, quite dirty looking, quite oily looking tarnished metal on the end of a flamer, what do they call them now? Pyro blaster, is that right? So soon have a quick look at that. So you see quite a few methods of doing this. A few of them are kind of almost like HDR hyper realistic and very, very bright purples, very bright blues, which I don't know, it's a bit over the top unless you're doing some of the Slanesh chaos types, and I am not. So the Imperial Fists like to have integrity and do things properly, don't they? So that's the idea. Let's come back in focus. There, excellent. Cool. So that's the plan. It's going to be a contrast only method, nice and quick and straightforward. So let me show you how it works. Here we have the most dynamically posed sergeant for the pyro dudes. What I've done already, let me show you the colours that we've got here. Okay, you can see I've already started to lay some colour in. So we have a mix of snakebite leather, then we're going to Celestian blue, bit of Luxian purple, and lastly, the very end, going for Black Templar, not Black Legion, very important. Black Legion's fantastic and gives really good opaque coverage, but that is not what we want. We want something that's less opaque for this little method. Cool, so we're going to work predominantly on this side so you can see what's going on. So you can see I've already started to layer down from about 2/3 of the way up some of the snakebite leather. So just starting at this point and then layering it towards the end of the weapon where we want it to be darkest, and feathering a little bit just with water, not faffing around with medium because we're just feathering. So feather it away so that you don't see that join, kind of like doing kind of a spot glaze if you like. Okay, cool. So we're going to go for a bit of the Celestian blue on it now. So as it's a contrast, that'll be straight from the pot. Let's get that open. Okay, awesome. Being dangerous, not putting my my contrast in any kind of particular holder. Okay, so we don't want too much. That Celestian is quite strong. So let's just put that down to this point now. Oh, there we go, that's good. Nice wet brush. And it's not super duper strong. Okay, cool. So hopefully you can see on the camera there. Let's zoom in a little bit more. What we're doing essentially is we're just building up a tone. Okay, so this is a fairly quick method, but there's still a degree of skill involved. So build up a tone sort of about a quarter of the way down. Okay, we're starting at the point where we want the brush, the lightest element of the colour to be, and then pulling down towards, oh there we go, that's quite a bit more, isn't it? Okay, that's the joy of the Celestian blue. Okay, cool. So just because I get a bit angry retentive, I'm going to feather that just so we get as smooth a finish as we can. And as you can see, I'm working on both sides of the weapon. What we don't want with contrasts similar to shades is that kind of tide line where the pigment pulls to the edge and you get that nasty looking tide line there. Cool, so let's just give that another careful going over. So being a little bit careful because the contrast, as we know, they can tear. And these ones aren't too bad, but anyway, there we go. Cool, so we can see the first stage. Very nice. I'll put back one, that's dry. Right, okay, so that's pretty much dried. Being a little bit dangerous. The other side of the weapon, there's still a bit of wet contrast in the in those little nacelle divots. However, we're going to move on to the purple. So it is the, let's just get the name right, the Luxian purple. The Luxian purple. Okay, so now you can, I've chosen not to, as you can see, but you can leave kind of like a stripe, a feathered stripe of the blue, and then you put the purple on. However, I don't want this to be quite dirty, so we're going to go purple over there. Hopefully you can just about see that in the video. Okay, again, I quite like this Luxian purple. I think it's kind of designed for Emperor's Children's fans, but it works well. Okay, very good on Tyranids as well. So that's great wet. Might at some point do a bit of experimentation with a sort of a thin down gloss glaze, because anyone who's got an exhaust on their bike or their car where you've got this kind of effect, it tends to have a glaze to it as well, a little bit of kind of a sheen. So cool, so that gives that impression there, lovely. So I'm going to do that on the other guys in the squad, so it's the same for everyone, they've all been hammering away burning Tyranids. And then we're going to finish up with that black, is it Black Templar, isn't it? I said, yeah. Cool, so we're going to finish up with a bit of Black Templar just at the end. We get the kind of the sooty deposits, and that should be all we need to do to give these a nice weathered look. Cool, see in a sec. Right, so that Luxian purple, I've actually given it 2 passes while I'm doing the rest of the Marines and let them dry as well. So I'm not sure how well that reads under the artificial light here. However, it's actually quite a strong purple there. Okay, putting really well faded the blue into the sort of the coppery metallics. So that's great. So we're just going to then finish off with a little bit of the Black Templar at the end. Now, I found that Corvus Black, which some of you will know and love, is absolutely fantastic at creating kind of burnt, blackening on terrain and on figures as well. And that equally, I'm sure, would probably give a really good effect at the end. But I want to keep this to contrast, because they're a good go-to for getting quick outcomes. So let's have a look then, shall we? So if we can see that, let's get enough light on there so we can see. So we're just doing the very end. Okay, and remembering that the front of the gun, Pyro Blaster, is going to actually have the most there. So obviously it looks a bit gloss while it's wet. Once that's dried, we've got, even from a sort of a tabletop point of view, a really nice, let me go in shot properly, sorry folks, a really nice gradation. Okay, cool. So again, I'll do that in all the models, and for the purposes of what I'm hoping to do with these guys, which is sort of a sort of high mid standard paint job, good for the tabletop, that's really good enough for them. You could take it further. What you could do, particularly around those vent holes, I suppose they're called, you could give a very gentle dry brush of original Coptic alloy colour, just to then kind of bring the edges of those out, where there's going to be, I suppose, they're going to catch on things, and that's going to then scar that weathering. Okay, just like in real life, if you've got a tarnished exhaust pipe and you scrape it, that tarnish comes off and you get out of the metal again. Okay, so it has as far as you want to make it. You could do some little striation lines, and you've got particular scratches. Well, it depends how far you want to go with it. But what I will be doing, what's going to be more important in terms of weathering for these guys, when we get to the final stage, we'll be chipping on edges, and then I'm thinking about using getting back in the middle, thinking about using some weathering materials on his legs, so some pigments, for the whole squad. And I did say it before, but yeah, I've still got a good idea with that asphalt idea. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, for that tarnishing on the end of the Pyroblaster, give it a try, see what you think. But yeah, pretty happy with the results. See you later.